knocking a million doors in Pennsylvania to ask people who are already planning to vote is an utter waste of time and energy and creates a mirage, because it does. It is such nonsense to spend time and energy and move people into those places to do that. I don't know if you guys disagree. I know there's a lot of people in the turnout model politics that are like, no. She would have done even worse had we not knocked on the doors, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. It might be different on a presidential level than, local or congressional. I'd have to think through that. Cause to say a blanket statement that the turnout model is not the way to go. That might be true in a presidential election. I'm not sure it's true across the board.
I guess in contrast to the persuasion model, the get new voters model. I guess, so I should be clear. What I'm saying is that you have two choices. What Donald Trump took as his path was, let's eat into their base.
Yep.
Let's go get people who vote for them. What did Democrats do? Told everybody who votes for Trump to go hump themselves, and we're just going to turn out our coalition. Then they lost their coalition of the young, they lost their coalition of Hispanic voters, and they got eaten into in the black vote turnout. So you know what works? Convincing people to vote for you,
right?
Not assuming that certain demographics are going to vote for you, and all you need to do is turn them out. So to be clear, Rob, that's my point. That spend your time convincing 5,000 or 10,000 people rather than knocking on a million doors. And if you think people are not convincible, take a look at the numbers of people that you've been saying as the Democratic power structure the whole time, that demographics are on our side, the Browning of America and the youth vote. And once again, it didn't work.
Yeah.
It is. This is where my sadness turns to madness, and I get a little angry about this stuff, because our particular work is persuasion oriented, so we get to ride a little high horse here for a little bit, and maybe act like you like voters for a minute, instead of just going around and skipping every
calling
third
them
door,
garbage.
every third door.
Yeah.
So, and it's not one comment. For sure. It's not that she shouldn't have said deplorables or Joe shouldn't have said garbage. It's the fact that those statements landed on people in a way that they said, oh, I believe them.
It reinforced what they feel already from the Democratic Party.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a whole lot of work to do. That's going to be important. And, our little work here, Vote Common Good, if we can keep our noses above the waves here, is going to be to do what we can for the next year to limit the harm that Trump can do. And then if we can stick around long enough to see if we can do something about making sure control of Congress is going to put some restraints on the nightmarishness that is the Trump administration. So I don't know if we want to look back or look forward in this podcast, like what happened or what's going to happen. But
I'd love to look at where we're at now. Rob, maybe you can walk us through what it means that Trump won and we lost the Senate and the House. What are we looking at here?
Because I get at total Republican control.
I get real depressed when I look at these pictures.
There is, when it comes to Trump, to confirmation of Trump's appointees, when it comes to confirmation of judges, that's the purview of the United States Senate. And so right now, with Mitch McConnell stepping down as leader of the majority in the Senate, there's a battle going on for who's going to be the leader of the Republicans. Right now, it looks like it's coming down to John Thune, who's a senator from Texas, a McConnell-aligned establishment Republican. I'd say like even-handed, but someone that would be perfectly at home in a traditional Republican Party that apparently doesn't exist anymore. But John Thune's one of those people.
Okay.
Running against him is Rick Scott, senator from Florida. Also a man who bizarrely resembles a snake.
And a Pez dispenser.
And a Pez dispenser. Yeah, that's good.
I was gonna say an alien pretending to be a human,
Skeletor.
but
You know,
We've all
like,
got an opinion about the guy's appearance.
wow, it's like he's like the Republican version of James Carville. It's just wow, that guy. He is, totally in the MAGA world and Donald Trump,
Yeah.
and is much more of a disrupting anti-establishment kind of guy. If he becomes, and what Trump has said is that he wants the Senate, whoever becomes leader in the Senate, he wants them to commit to recess appointments of his judges and his nominees, which is a way of bypassing the Democrats' ability to slow any of those nominations down or thwart them. It's typically seen as a weak move by a president. It's basically allowing the president to, while the Senate is in recess, he can go ahead and appoint the people, and bypass the need for confirmation. That happens. It doesn't allow them to serve for a full term. I can't remember all of the mechanics with it, but Trump wants that ability, because I think he knows he's gonna run into some significant opposition in the Senate with some of his appointees, particularly judges. So that's really significant. On the House side, the House is primarily responsible for producing the budget and allocating funds, expenditures, and with Republicans having full control of that, it's very likely that we're going to see things like the Affordable Care Act being repealed, money that was allotted. I was talking with someone yesterday who is in the climate change business, and was talking about working with expanding solar power through the Inflation Reduction Act, and he's like, "Well, I don't know. We'll have to see if the money's still going to be there." And I was like, "Dude, it's not going to be there." There's things, there's money that has been allocated
and not spent
through the Infrastructure Act, through Inflation Reduction Act, and but it hasn't been spent yet. All of that could go away. In addition to support for Ukraine, and all sorts of things. And then on top of that, then you've got like the overall structural integrity of the American government, with Trump talking about wanting to he's going to get rid of the Department of Education. You begin to think about what the Department of Education does, everything from administrating Pell Grants to making sure that schools are accessible to handicapped kids, like Head Start programs. It's just like all of that stuff conceivably could go away. And then and then you layer on that like the prospect of RFK Jr. becoming head of Health and Human Services.
Oh my gosh.
And you've got a whole nother set of, on the one hand, we're going to have like a stripped down conservative fever dream of getting rid of government programs, and at the same time we might very well have the nanny state of the government, of the government telling us what we can and can't do in terms of what we eat and drink and how we live our lives. And vaccines, I mean, very literally vaccines could go away. RFK Jr. tried to hide the fact he's an anti-vaxxer. He has been, he is. And
when he had to come out and say, I would not get rid of vaccines. They're talking about getting rid of vaccines.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
because he's also
when's that
said
coming up?
he's also said he doesn't think there's a single vaccine that is worth having.
Yes.
Well,
But,
as a person who has not had polio, I'm really thankful for, the existence of vaccines. As a person who's not had the measles, I'm really happy that, vaccines exist.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, look,
I mean,
there
the
are days where I
prospect
think
of what we're headed for
is
and
terrible.
and it's awful, and Republicans have full control. Like
Yep.
there's very little, particularly in the House of Representatives. There's more, and what will be very interesting to see is Republicans who have consistently over the years used the filibuster in the Senate to keep Democrats from enacting some of their best ideas. Will Republicans now eliminate the filibuster to keep Democrats from?
No
I
doubt.
fully
No
expect they will.
doubt. No doubt they will remove the filibuster.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
then
right?
Chuck
Yeah.
Schumer then can go sit in a retirement home somewhere
Yep.
and say, boy, I
There's
really
n-
love the old days when there were stick shift cars and you had to roll down the windows with the crank.
Yep.
Because these guys have mismanaged this stuff. And if you don't think Donald Trump is going to tell either Thune or Florida Pez to get rid of the filibuster, and they will do it, they are for sure going to do it. Or what they're going to do is say, the new rules now are that we're getting rid of the filibuster on these topics and for these issues for this amount of time. And they'll find a way to do something other than just get rid of the
so
filibuster.
they can keep it in their back pocket for when they need it.
Yeah, so when they need it. Look, Rob, I think that's a great explanation.
Just one final thing on this with a little Arkansas flavor. What we're seeing from Republicans and what we will see from Republicans is when they have total control, there is no interest in bringing Democrats to the table, no interest in finding compromise or anything.
Nope.
And just a little example of that here in Arkansas, the state legislature, the Republicans control the state legislature, and they have removed the role of vice chair of committees. So essentially making it so that Democrats have no influence on any of the state legislative committees. Typically, you've got your chair, who's the Republican, the ruling party, and then the vice chair kind of leads the opposition. And they've just said, "No, we're not going to have vice chairs anymore."
Yeah, we don't need that. That's annoying.
Now, here's the one thing that could be protecting America. Republicans are bad at governing. And
I have thoughts about this too.
And Republicans in the House will immediately feel the pressure that the American people don't like what's happening. Yeah. And they'll fear they're going to lose their jobs or lose their majority. Yeah. The infighting inside the Republican Party, because there is no Nancy Pelosi over there to wrangle them together. You think Mike Johnson's going to have control over this? A bunch of people are going to want Mike Johnson's job. They're going to headhunt for him. If he gives any resistance to Trump, that's going to cause a bunch of infighting. And the upside here is that we can make this guarantee. Vote Common Good will do everything that it can to be sure that Donald Trump never wins a presidential election again. Guaranteed. And because of that fact, because we're on the case, the posturing to be sure that J.D. Vance doesn't just be handed the nomination is going to be swift and severe. And the number of senators and House members who are not going to go along with Trump because they're fighting, because the infighting is the one thing that I think could be, it's worth watching. And I think it's a thing that could really stall out because they're only going to have a small majority in the Senate and a small majority in the House. And that infighting, when Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio and and
Secretary of State
Thune.
Marco Rubio.
What's that?
Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
Oh, has he been appointed, or does he just want it?
New York Times is reporting that he's going to be the choice for Secretary of State.
Okay, well then he's stepping his way out of the presidential run, because you're not going to run. I guess he could try.
Hillary Clinton did it.
Yeah, she waited a term. Yeah, I guess you could. No, she didn't wait a term, did she? Was she the current secretary when she? Yeah,
she might have stepped down. I don't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember. But that infighting is going to be a real problem for them. Okay, Rob, I think they're bad at governing because they've proven that they're bad at governing, especially at the federal level. You seem to think they're
no. I think they're horrible. Yeah, I think they're terrible at governing. Here's my concern.
Mm-hmm.
We have spent a lot of time over the years criticizing the quote unquote adults in the room.
Yeah.
The people who joined the Trump administration with the sometimes even expressed intent of saying, yeah, we know how things work. We're going to make sure we slow things down.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we've spent a lot of time criticizing those people for not being forthright with the American public, for not speaking up about what they knew, questioning, if that was what they were really doing. What if that's what they were really doing?
What?
And this time, there's not going to be any adults in the room.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest concerns.
The administration is going to be filled with sycophants and loyalists who they may be bad at governing, but there's going to be no breaks.
But so your assumption is
I've shifted to the executive branch. You were talking about the Republicans in the legislative branch, but my fear is that the Trump administration is going to be able to go full tilt because no one internally is going to be pumping the brakes on it.
There are no adults in the room.
Yes.
Yeah.
The guardrails are off. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, and that's what I think the minimal amount of accomplishment that the 2020 Trump or the 2016 to 2020 administration had came because of the adults in the room. You take those people out and they're going to do a bunch of things, but it's going to be terrible. And they're going to be tied up in court and things are going to be stalled out over and like the people who are going to who are going to thrive are government lawyers.
Yeah.
The amount of lawsuits and look, and the law, it's hard to say with the Supreme Court doing what it's doing. We can talk about that in a minute because that's a dark road of what's happening there. But the lawyers are going to be the backstop here because they are going to litigate every single decision, executive decision and secretary decision that is made. They are going to make this just a living nightmare for Trump. Look, the guy says things like, if you didn't have me being, looked into by Mueller, and if you hadn't had all these people holding me back, then I would have what? What would he have done?
Yeah.
Every idea the Joker wanted to do, like have Joe Biden arrested in October of 2020, and he couldn't do it because Bill Barr told him no. You think when the new secretary of, when the new attorney general says, yes, sir, and they go and arrest Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, you don't think the American people are going to freak out? They're absolutely going
I don't know. Maybe they won't.
I don't.
Maybe they won't.
I have zero trust that they would.
Point made.
What proof do we have?
And in the meantime, here's the bummer. They're going to do a bunch of stuff that hurts real people while it's litigated and then, repealed or whatever. Yes. So we're putting back in charge Tom Homan. I don't know. I don't care. The former ICE dude under the Trump administration who was in charge of the zero tolerance program that separated families at the border. Putting him back in and saying, let's deport everybody.
Yep.
And there's no more guardrails. There's no more... Yeah. This is
legal.
This is going to be a mess.
Be the only way to
day
do
one.
This guy being asked about, hey, if we have this mass deportation, isn't that going to separate families? And his response was, maybe we'll deport the whole family.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this is like, it's just like, wow, this guy. Yeah.
And
So I
then
guess this is the question. Will the American people, when it's not a choice between this candidate and that candidate, when they see this stuff happening, when they see retribution against journalists and politicians by the Justice Department, when they see family deportations happening, when they see the Department of Education being shut down and funds being not allocated because they've tried to move them into other departments and they can't figure out how to do it, when all that stuff starts to happen, I do think the American people are going to say, whoa, we didn't want this. Now, our teeny little example of this is West Michigan, when this same bunch of super crazies took over the county commission's office there and fired the health inspector and did all the things they did. There was huge backlash. They lost their seats. And then they all came back to the Republican Party later. So I do think there's going to be a real pushback by the American people about the policy things, because Trump supporters voted on vibe. I mean, here's the funny thing. They're like, you guys on your Kamala Harris thing, it's all about vibes and no content. Trump didn't talk about this stuff in ways that was breaking through to most voters. Yeah. He would talk about it in the ridiculous swirly or whatever nonsense thing he does when he just starts with one sentence and finishes with whales.
It's the weave.
The weave.
It's the weave.
I think people are going to freak out. Now, again, if anybody was betting on our political prognostication here, I think they should switch to a different YouTube video.
The other way.
Yeah. We're not.
Okay,
we're not yet reliable.
Yeah. So here's we'll kind of give a rundown of what the administration looks like at this point. Susie Wiles be the White House chief of staff.
Who is that?
She was one of the campaign managers, longtime Republican insider. A Trump loyalist. This is not General Kelly pumping the brakes. Stephen Miller will be White House deputy chief of staff for policy.
And just to pause there, just the hugest piece of
dung, POD.
Yeah.
Cannot stand that. He's just an evil person, a horrible, evil man.
Yes. Yes, he is.
Continue.
Deputy chief of staff for policy. So, great. Marco Rubio will be Secretary of State.
What happens in Florida? Is there a special election that has to happen? Do you know, or is someone just appointed until the next election?
Typically governors can appoint someone
to
fill a term until a special election. It's very likely. My guess is Ron DeSantis will appoint himself and will become the senator from Florida. I'm not even joking.
Heard it here first.
I'm not joking. But it's nice to see how little Marco has grown up. Elise Stefanik, ambassador to the United Nations.
Yeah, who cares?
The Nikki Haley role. We talked about Tom Hammond. Lee Zeldin, EPA administrator. Now, what's interesting here is the Republican majority in the House is small. It's slim. And the more Republican congresspeople that Donald Trump plucks for his administration, it brings the Republican margin much, much lower until special elections can be held. And then you just never know what will happen in those special elections. So Elise Stefanik, that's -1. Lee Zeldin, that's -2. And there's going to be more, and as those people keep coming off the board, the things get tighter and tighter in the House of Representatives.
Yep.
And then Kristi Noem. It looks like Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, North Dakota, one of the Dakotas. Who knows?
South
Dakotas. Famous for shooting her dog and cheating on her husband with Trump aide Corey Lewandowski. she's going to be named Secretary of Homeland Security. Also, Kristi Noem, famous for being on stage with Donald Trump for 45 minutes while he listened to music.
Trapped in a hostage situation.
And he won. Okay, here's a thing that's noticeable about the cabinet secretaries. In 2016, Trump knew he had to repay the evangelicals for electing him.
Yep.
So he filled the cabinet positions and the administration with evangelicals. From Betsy DeVos to Ben, who was Ben Carson, to Mike Pence, to who's the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. Across the board, they picked all from this little group of the prayer breakfast crowd, evangelicals, Mike Pence cronies. This time, they're not doing that.
Yeah,
don't have to.
Nope. No, there's no Betsy DeVos that they're going to and kind of saying thanks to the evangelicals.
I mean, so far we'll see. Nope. So far,
well, yeah. Well, the first ones they name were not those people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So they've sent a message here that they're not kowtowing to that crowd anymore. So evangelicals out there, if you thought you had a foot in the door, thank you. Thanks for your servitude. You're not needed any longer. Those folks are going to be set aside by the Trump administration. They don't want the super wacky goofies. They don't want Paula White in there. They don't want any more of that stuff. This is my prediction that you're going to see an administration this time that looks very little like it looked in 2016 to 2020. They're not going to have Mitch McConnell's wife in the cabinet. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
Vince McMahon's wife, very likely to be in the cabinet.
Yes, that's great.
And for anyone who watched the Mr. McMahon documentary on Netflix and wondering about what the future might hold for Vince McMahon, fully expect him to get a pardon and therefore not to be held accountable for the really horrific crimes he's committed.
He committed federal crimes?
Yeah, he has been accused of civil litigation, and there is an ongoing federal investigation into charges of rape and trafficking and just fully expect a pardon for him. I mean, from where I sit here in Arkansas, we got fingers crossed.
Is that north or south Arkansas?
Northwest. Fingers crossed that Sarah Huckabee Sanders will be rejoining the Trump administration.
That'd be a one little silver lining.
Also, the woman who wasn't sure if she wanted to run for governor to be the superintendent of her daddy's Sunday school program, they don't need her anymore.
Yeah,
this is what I'm watching out for. They don't want or need that real true Stephen Miller crowd. Didn't like those people anyway.
Yeah,
they didn't want them around, and I just think they're all going to get cut out. Now, Steve Bannon's super crazy Catholics, the Pope is the devil, even as Catholic people. That crowd ready to roll.
Yeah. Does Mike Flynn become defense secretary?
God.
Or national security advisor.
Again,
there's some talk. Yeah. Some of the other rumors I've heard is that Tulsi Gabbard might be in the running for defense secretary, and Sarah Huckabee Sanders could possibly be named Secretary of Education, which again is odd if you're getting rid of the department. Why you'd name a secretary?
Somebody has to do it. They have to unravel. Somebody's
got to shut it down. Yeah. And the way she has dismantled public education here in Arkansas, she might be able to do that nationwide. So.
Now, I think on that education thing, Rick Perry was famously running his presidential campaign in 2016 that he wanted to get rid of a bunch of departments.
Yep.
Then he was appointed the Secretary of Education.
And one of the departments he campaigned on getting rid of.
And didn't do it. So.
Yeah, but that wasn't under Trump. that was under George W. Bush. There was a certain amount of, sanity there. Betsy DeVos was the Trump person, and we saw just how terrible that was for education across the country.
Yeah, it was terrible. Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's true. That's
when free and reduced lunches go away, when Pell Grants go away, when GT programs, gifted and talented programs go away, all of the on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
When Title IX goes away and now there's girls sports go away.
Well, they're going to keep Title IX in place to be sure to protect against trans athletes, because trans kids are another thing that they're
going after.
They're absolutely going after. Well, this is cheery.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, tell us about some common good candidates that did get elected. Lift my spirits. Give me 45 or so.
We had we're up to 46 now in terms of elections being called. Probably will get up close to 50 candidates for common good that were elected. And, there was across the country some really surprising results. What's her name in Michigan?
Slotkin?
Elise Slotkin.
Elise Slotkin. Yeah, I had Stefanik in my head.
Stefanik, it happens to me a lot too.
Yeah,
the ES names.
Yeah, I mean, they have the same initials. They must be the same person.
Yeah.
So, Slotkin in Michigan being elected, that's a big win.
Yeah.
Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin winning re-election is a big win. Carrie Lake being defeated in Arizona is a big win. Angela Also Brooks beating Larry Hogan in Maryland, big win. Angela Also Brooks, a candidate for Common Good, becoming the U.S. Senator from Maryland, that's a big win. So there's some things like that that you look around and you go, okay, that's good. And then there's some tough ones. Bob Casey getting beat. Colin Allred, big fan of. I never thought that he was going to win that race.
Never close.
So I mean, there's.
Well, and what's surprising is you look at Tammy Baldwin and Elise Stefanik, Wisconsin and Michigan, for people that aren't keeping track at home. Their state went for Trump.
Yeah.
They won statewide as Democrats.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to stir up the conspiracy theorists that are in our chat already. I don't think there's anything funny going on with the numbers. I think people made choices. Mm-hmm. And some people came out and voted for Trump and didn't vote on the Senate side. And some people voted for Trump and for the Democrat. And some people only voted for the Democrat and didn't vote for Harris. So that combination of things is, I think, what happened. And that's a better explanation than, Elon Musk was somehow using Starlink to interfere with the election. But as you said earlier, Rob, we all need, people need a reason for the believing, right? So they're going to do what they can. They're going to do what they can do. But that's interesting, right? And this is something that says elections are about candidates, which I would have thought would have meant Donald Trump doesn't have a chance. They're not only about what the American people are saying or what happened in Michigan. Well, you could say what happened in Michigan was that a senator was elected as a Democrat, right? Mm-hmm. But you say, well, those same people then, and I looked at the numbers and I can't remember where they are now. I don't know why Harris didn't get to the number, or she did get to the numbers above Stefanik, but they weren't enough to outdo Trump, I think is what it was. So there's some big combination of things happening and going on. I think there were a lot of people who walked in the voting booth and filled out the president and walked out. There's just a lot of people who don't know. I mean, a lot of people in our lives who, pay attention to politics a little bit and pay attention to politics because we do. They're like, who's our senator? And I know the people who are watching this right now, they can't imagine that, but I promise you it's true. I've seen it.
Yeah.
People don't
Yeah.
know who their sitting senators are. They don't know who their Congress people are. So they're not just straight ticket voters. They go in and vote for the president and then leave the rest of it blank and walk out, or think about which name they think looks most fun, and they fill in the circle.
And I mean, one other thing to feel good about, right here in my district, in Arkansas State House District 9, a seat I briefly was going to run for, and had declared that I was going to run for, and I think even talked about it on this podcast that I was running for that seat, and then ended up dropping out because Diana Gonzalez-Worthen got into the race, a highly qualified Latina who lost by 109 votes in 2022, flipped the seat and was elected to the Arkansas State House.
All right.
And so that Great. We're feeling really good about that. And Diana is my representative now, and I could not be happier about it.
That's great.
Yabit says that Alexander Vidman won. Did he win in Montana? Is that what that means?
I'm not sure.
The little Trump narker. Wow. What's he doing living in Montana? What's going on in Montana?
Okay, so his brother was elected to the House.
Huh.
Vindman's
Democrat
brother.
Eugene Vidman, whose twin brother Alexander Vidman played a role in the first impeachment of former President Donald Trump, was elected to the House of Representatives on Thursday. Looking for
Yabitz is screaming. He says, no, Virginia.
Yeah.
So the two brothers are both elected, are in Congress together, the Vindman brothers?
No, Alexander's not in Congress.
Okay, then
His
I must stop
reading. Is now in Congress.
I'm going to stop reading the words that Yabitz is writing right now because they must be meaning something else. He says, no, Vindman is a U.S. rep, ... Virginia. Welcome to the podcast where we read comments. And Rob Googles.
Yes.
Well, but now says my bad. Okay, fair enough.
It's Eugene Vidman, who is now a congressman from Virginia, twin brother of Alexander Vidman.
Okay. I was going to say, if there were twinsy brothers in there again, like
adorable,
just great. There were those two brothers from Texas, Castros. Yeah, Castros. I don't know what happened to them. They've sort of disappeared.
One's in Congress, where the other one is.
Okay. One's in Congress. Yeah. Okay. Well,
oh gosh,
I don't know.
What am I doing?
I feel horrible about all this. Shelley said to me, she said, are you ready, to talk on the podcast about all this stuff? Yeah. I said, yeah, I think so. And about 10 minutes in, my head is throbbing. I don't want to talk about this stuff. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but it's just like, I honestly want to ignore it, and we can, because none of this is real until January 20th. 12:01. And
I have avoided my cigar shop because I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't, especially with a lot of those guys. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's funny. I don't know how. Let's just tap into our feelings for a second here, boys. Let's just
I know you guys like to do that.
Our feelings. Yeah, let's do that because that's helpful. Spend time talking about how you're feeling about things. I don't feel any sense of like embarrassment or like a Trump supporter that's like, oh, you won, I lost. I don't feel any of that. Maybe I'm just numb to it. I am utterly bewildered that Kamala Harris was not more interesting to more people. And I'm just deeply, deeply sad at the damage that this crazy man is going to do to this election. But and maybe later I'll start feeling a bunch of like, no, we said we were right and you were right. And I feel bad about that. Do you guys feel any of that? Do you feel any of the, like, I don't know, like see your Trump friend and be like, oh, now I gotta, he's going to rub my nose in it. I'm like, oh no, my nose is so deep in it. I mean, this is.
Yeah, I don't feel any of that either, I guess. Just the sadness that this the direction we're going to go for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's worse than just a regular swing from an incumbent to, because the Trump administration will actively try to do damage that will take decades to undo.
Yes.
Even if things swing back the other way in 4 years. So it's not just going to be a 4-year blip. It's setting us backwards.
Yep.
For a
and
while.
8 of 12 years will have Donald Trump and people like Donald Trump running the federal government.
Yeah. When I was talking with Whimsy, who's 10 years old, she was like, "Oh, so Donald Trump's our president now." I said, "Not yet, not until January." And I said, "He'll be president for 4 years." And she said, "So I'll be a teenager when he's not president anymore?"
Wow.
Her
whole life.
I was just like, wow.
Yep.
It's hard. So.
Yeah, and Ben makes a comment in here. Hi, Ben. Glad you're on the chat. You're on the wrong side of history. It's a mandate. We won the popular vote. Yeah. And well, then by that argument, Ben, then you were on the wrong side of history for the last 4 years, and it was a mandate. So
the last 8 years, if we're using the popular vote.
Yeah, the right side of history. That's right. For other than George Bush, back to 1992, that's not how you determine the right side of history. I mean, it's
yeah, these are the same folks who want to argue that we're not a democracy, we're a republic because the mob rule, all that's gone now, right?
And these are the same people that'll be back on the Romans 13 train when that was real quiet for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
It's always obey the laws of the government when your guy's in charge.
For God ordained
the government. Ben also wonders, why do we want illegal immigrants here exactly? So Ben is one of these people.
Hey Ben, glad to have you aboard. Let me tell you that 50% of the people that Donald Trump wants to deport came legally and didn't leave after their visa expired because it wasn't going to be possible to get their visas renewed. So they did come the right way. Secondly,
exactly
like Melania Trump, if you want to work in this country and you're from Central America or South America, you're on a 20-year waiting list to get in the country because we've limited the number of visas. So the country demands that we have workers that don't have documentation. That's why they're here. So when you meet somebody who's undocumented, which I'm sure you do, Ben, because you seem like somebody who cares about this stuff, you should talk with them about, did they come with legal status and then overstay, or did they come in the country without having legal status? When you find out why and what they've spent their time doing, my guess is you're going to find out that they've been working to make America thrive where people like Donald Trump have not. Now, not to be hard on trust fund kids, but if you want to compare the life of an immigrant worker in the United States that doesn't have authorization to be here, that's working like crazy, to any of the people you're hanging around with that want to kick them out, I would love for you to have that conversation with some folks. And if you don't know any, start asking around. Head over to your Home Depot parking lot. Head over to places where all the workers in your area go pick up day laborers and start having some conversations with them. Stop by a place where someone's putting on a new roof and have a conversation with them. Or swing into a restaurant. Stop back in the kitchen. Take a peek back in there and answer yourself this big riddle. Why would they even want to be here if they don't want to be here legally? So this might be new to you, and I don't want to be flippant, but it shouldn't be new to you if you wanted to pay attention. So I'm sure you do, and you'll figure this out. And when they're deported and your restaurant says, we now don't have in-restaurant dining, when the roofer says, we're now 9 months out to put a roof on your house, when you can't get anyone to come and do the landscaping work that you want to see happen, you can say to yourself, well, I'm glad they're not here illegally.
Yep. And then you layer on top of all of that the cost of goods caused by the tariffs.
Yeah. Well, Ben,
it's a new day in America.
Yeah, Ben, thank you. Guy in the hat. His name's Doug. Words are below there. I do appreciate that you think it's different if they've overstayed their expired visas. But that is the bulk of the people that Trump wants to remove from the country. So
and to be clear, he also wants to deport the people that came here legally under temporary protected status, like the Haitian community.
yes,
He wants to rescind that and
he wants
send
to
them back.
rescind that and then say that they're here illegally. Because as J.D. Vance said in the debate, I do not believe that they came here legally. I think they came here under a loophole created by an administration that didn't have the right to do so. So they're out.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on. So when you hold up mass deportation signs and Trump says something like 13 or 16 or 18 million people, the number's not that high. It's closer to 10. And half of those are overstays of their visas. And the other half are people who are working. Because I promise you, Ben, as you know, to be in America and not have a job, it's not a great country.
Yeah.
Now, you might be married to somebody who's floating your boat. Congratulations. Tell them thank you for all of us that you get to sit it out. But for a lot of people, they're only in America because they need to work. So if you wonder why people are here without authorization, it's not to freeload at the public pool.
Yep.
It's to have a job.
Yeah. And Ben's asking about, if we held these same beliefs when Obama was deporting people. Again, Ben, I love the fact that you're here. We've been super critical of Democrats on immigration.
And Biden. Yeah. Obama, Biden.
Deporter in chief, for sure. Nonsense what he's doing. What we needed to do before deportation. See, here's the thing, Ben. Here's what Republicans like to say. They like to say, before we can allow new people in, we need to secure the border. And we would say, until you figured out a legal process for people to enter the country, you cannot start deporting. That's the answer. Figure out a way for people to get legal status and renew their status once they're here. And we can talk about it all day long. Because you know what? You take 18 million people out of the United States who are doing those jobs, you're going to feel it. Truthfully, you put 30 million more people in the country working, you're going to have less than 10% increase in the total, less than 1% increase in the total population in the United States. And Ben, you're just going to see thriving economy. Remember when Republicans used to tell you that an expanding economy floated all the boats? But then they say when more workers come in, somehow that takes a job from you. If you've had your job taken by an immigrant that had to leave their home and cross a desert and nearly die and get here for your job, you might want to consider your job choices. Now, on the other hand, if you don't want to do the jobs that people who are in this country without authorization are doing, feel free to say so. But this is nonsense to think you're going to deport these people. And the big question is, what's it going to solve? What is it going to solve? Yep. Shelley asks a great question here too. She says, what's the point in getting rid of the Department of Education? To make people less educated? If you're running a political campaign where the majority of your voters don't have a college education, do you think you want to have a system that produces college graduates? I don't think so.
Yeah. And yeah. Hey, listen, could I just...
Thanks for letting me lecture, though, Ben. It kind of made my headache go away a little bit. I got out of sorrow mode and into bossy mode. Glad you're here, Ben. I don't know. What is Ben on Facebook
YouTube.
or Instagram or YouTube? Oh, YouTube. Thanks, Ben. Hey, be sure to click the bell. Be sure to subscribe.
Smash that subscribe button. I just want to say maybe we can end on this. Dean Phillips was right about everything.
I was going to call Dean this afternoon and see if we could grab coffee. Truthfully.
No, Dean.
No,
Dean Phillips was right about everything.
So is George Clooney, voice man for Vote Common Good.
Well, we'll see everybody when we see you next.
Sometime.
When we dig ourselves out of our caves of depression.
Because this was not a good idea. Too soon. Have you already named it? You probably already named it, right? Like, I think we should rename it as It Turns Out It Was Too Soon. Okay. Well, what in the faith, hope, and love happened? We don't know. But thanks, Ben. Hey, Ben, seriously, if you do subscribe, go back and look through our stuff, especially there's all kinds of stuff on immigration. We have a whole channel on it. I'm sorry, a whole playlist on it. There's all kinds of material there on YouTube. For all the rest of you too, if you're just on Facebook or something, we operate over on YouTube. And by the way, for people who get confused, because people have said this to me, we put this out at the same time on multiple channels. So that's why some comments that we reference, you're not even seeing. It's because you might be on Facebook or one of the different pages on Facebook. Other people are on Twitch. Somebody's over there on YouTube. We're following none of the rules of social media success. We're just blasting because you don't reach these kinds of watch numbers with a narrowly targeted approach.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to. Can I just? I just want to say something else.
Yeah.
Remember when China or when remember when Mexico was going to pay for the wall?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And people bought that hook, line, and sinker.
Mm-hmm.
The tariff thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
China is going to pay for the tariffs. No, they're not.
That's not how it works.
In the same way that Mexico didn't pay for the wall.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay.
Hey, we got something from an insider that said that Congress is about to vote on a couple of bills to fast track Trump's ability to institute revenge right away. He's going to fast track the vote to the House of Representatives on the Stop Terror Financing and Tax Penalties on American Hostages Act. Would grant the Secretary of Treasury Department unilateral authority to revoke the tax-exempt status of any nonprofit that they term to be involved in terrorist activities, including against the United States government. Wouldn't this be a kick if Trump started going around revoking groups like ours, their tax-exempt status? Man, that would be a charm. Please, somebody who's got their lips up to Trump's ear. Stormy, any of you, just let him know about us. Please target us. Please, 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 please target us.
Yeah.
Because we made you cry when you heard Julia Roberts' voice say vote for Kamala Harris. You know that little weep in your heart, Donnie. It hurt you. Come back at us. Please, 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 please. That would help a lot. The tens of dollars would come rolling in. Yeah, these guys, I'm telling you, if they start this stuff, if they start going after the enemies list because they think it makes sense, the American people will freak out.
But not enough to matter.
Oh, yeah, they will. Yeah, they will.
Okay.
I'm confident. So. It'll be a run on the table politically. But then again, and we love, I'm a Democrat. I love Democrats. I want Democrats to win because I think Republicans have sold their souls and are useless. And they've just been full of bad ideas for a long time, but they're useless. So we need a better Democratic Party too that makes sure that these kinds of things don't happen. If you have the presidency for 4 years and you can't get yourself reelected, that's kind of on you.
Yeah.
And the Biden team and the Harris team did not put forth a compelling enough argument why it should be them. And they had the worst possible candidate and the highest level of contrast between them and any other candidate they could ever want. And they couldn't convince people because they never explained anything. By the way, I was thinking about this yesterday. I was like, on the podcast, I'm going to say this, and I've waited an hour and whatever. Another adage that I just cannot abide with any longer. When you're explaining, you're losing. That is not true. Explain it. Tell people what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, and what the implications are. Because people don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know. For Ben to be somebody who's listening to a podcast like this and not knowing that 50% of the people Donald Trump wants to deport are people who've overstayed their visas, Kamala Harris should have been saying it repeatedly. Their surrogates should have been saying it. Like this obsession with, if you were smart, you'd already know. This political sort of, hey, you know what the coolest, you know what the hippest rock band is in the country right now? Well, yeah, you wouldn't have heard of them, so I won't even tell you. Like, that attitude is so terrible.
Yep.
Thinking people know this stuff, they don't know. And the reason they don't know is because it's complicated and you keep it hidden, and it's in your work field. Explain to people how it works. And look, it's not just the Biden-Harris team, but the Biden team was particularly bad at this. We passed the CHIPS Act. People literally are like, tortilla chips? What is it? What are you even talking about? Because we spend more money on potato chips every year, just potato chips, than we do on all financing for campaigns. Why wouldn't you come out and say, let's explain this and put a campaign of explanation in place? Mm-hmm. Because this obsession with, if you're explaining, you're losing, is like the worst PR nonsense that's into political campaigns. And I would say to everybody running for any elected position, tell people what your job is, tell them how it impacts them, and explain how it works, because people don't know. The number of people who voted for president this year is going to be 145 million? 145 million? Yep. What percentage of those people do you think could name their senator? What are the two? And what percentage of those do you think could name their congressperson? And I was speaking to someone last night, super informed, cared about this stuff, super into it. I said, well, some of our work at Vote Common Good is going to be sure that we, help control the flip Congress in 2026 if it turns out that it's in Republican hands. And she goes, yeah, do all members of the House of Representatives run every 2 years? Is that for all of them? Very sincere, beautiful question. Mm-hmm. She has a master's degree. She is a very smart person paying attention to this. She was unclear about that. So this obsession with don't explain anything, don't get too complicated. Oh my gosh. Now, on that other side, people don't vote for policy, they vote for politicians. But what Trump did was he said, you have a problem, I will fix it. If you don't think that's how you want to talk, then you have to say, here's the problem and here's what will fix it. Don't just say, oh, that guy. So please, politicians and want to be politicians in the future, spend a little time helping people understand what your job even is. If you were to win, vote for me, and stop telling people stuff they're not going to get out of it. You're not going to put a chicken in every pot. So stop telling them. Tell them what you would do, because it's part of your job.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. I'm done. I'm done.
Now I'm done.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Mic slap. It's sort of like a mic drop, but just
how'd that feel in your ears, Mike? Because Mike Stavlin's the last one listening on the actual podcast, so we know that. So that's for you, Mike. That's a little love tap on the mic for you.
All right. Bye, everybody.